These days, I'm getting quite a few people approach me and ask me what they should do in cases of civil unrest, be it political violence in the US or terrorist incidents in Europe. Also, this morning I was talking to somebody reference the issues with the white farmers in South Africa being attacked. Earlier this week, I was talking to somebody reference villages and communities being attacked in West Africa by armed gangs and robbers and kidnappers. And these communities are defenseless. So this issue of civil unrest is not confined to one specific area. At the moment, it's a global problem. So what can people do to protect themselves in these situations? For most people, this is the first time they've had to ask themselves, how can they protect themselves, their families, their homes, and their businesses when the police or military are not there to help them? I'm going to try to answer a few of the questions related to dealing with civil unrest and give you some realistic response options. As with all security operations, the first thing you must do is do a threat assessment to identify all the issues and problems you could encounter. You then need to work out a plan of how to deal with all the problems that you could possibly encounter. When you're compiling a threat assessment, don't be afraid to ask others' advice. You want to get as many different opinions as possible because you need to identify all the threats you could possibly encounter. And it's not just the threats from physical violence or riots, etc. It could be the issues of where can you get medical supplies? Where can you get batteries? How are you going to communicate with others? So you need to consider all the potential problems you could encounter. Once you've compiled the threat assessment, you need to put in place a workable plan and work out how to deal with the potential issues and problems you've identified. Now, how you do this will depend a lot on the laws of the area you're in, the environment you're in. Will you be by yourself? Will you be with your family? Or will you be working with a group or community? There are both positives and negatives to being by yourself or working with a group. If you're with a group or community, you must organize yourselves, which can sound easy, but this is where people's egos, bad communication, and lack of team spirit can jeopardize the whole operation before it even gets started. Once you have the threat assessment done, the plan in place, and have organized yourself, you need to monitor the situation. You need to monitor what's going on around you and your local areas. You can do this via social media, you can do this via neighbors or with other contacts you might have. You need as much notice as possible of potential hostilities. You have two options when dealing with civil unrest. You can either fight or you can flee. You can stay in place and defend your property, or you can move to a safer location. If you decide to stay in place, then you need to make sure your location is secure. You need to ensure you have the required supplies if you need to stay there for a while. If you decide to flee, then you need sufficient transport, planned routes, and you need somewhere safe to go to. Most people's response to dealing with civil unrest issues, especially in the United States, is to arm themselves with firearms. In the US, they're lucky enough to still be able to get hold of firearms for self-defense purposes. In most other parts of the world, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to get hold of legal firearms for self-defense. If you are arming yourself and your family, ensure everything you're doing is legal, and everyone has the proper training to handle the firearms they're going to be carrying and using. Also, make sure you know the laws on use of force for your area, and make sure you can always justify any force you use to defend yourself or others. You don't want to survive an attack, then end up going to jail, which these days is a strong possibility if whatever you do is not in full compliance with the laws for the area that you're in. Now let me give you a couple of examples of different situations and possible responses to civil unrest in those situations. To start with, let's say you're in a busy urban area such as New York City. You're in your apartment with your family and there's a riot going on outside. And all of a sudden, you have a gang trying to kick in your front door. What are you going to do about it? Well, hopefully your front door is barricaded and within your apartment you have a room, a safe room, where you can go with your family and barricade yourself in until the incident is over. You also want to think about who you can call to come and help you. Can you call the police? Will they be able to come and help you? Will they take minutes? Will they take hours? Will they take days? Are there friends that you can call to come and help you? Do you have escape routes? Can you safely get out of the building? And then where are you going to go to? If you see most riot situations, there's always fire. So you need to consider, what are you going to do if the building you're in is on fire? you're going to have to escape. You're going to have some firefighting equipment. But fire is a major issue in all urban areas and riot situations. Could you use force to defend yourself? Yeah, sure, if you're capable, or if you have the weapons, be them improvised or you have firearms. But New York City, like a lot of Europe, has very, very strict gun laws. So if you use a firearm, if you use a weapon to defend yourself, be sure you can justify why you used it to the police after the event. If the police turn up after the event and you've got half a dozen bodies in your apartment or in the hallway outside your apartment, be sure you can justify that you shot those people in self-defense because you don't want to be charged with using excessive force, manslaughter, or possibly murder. Another example is you're in a rural area or semi-rural area. The first thing is, do you have the necessary supplies to stay in that location for an extended period of time? Then, is your location defendable? Does the property have fences around it? Will the fences stop people from getting onto your property? Is the building you're in defendable? Is it properly secured? Also, what warning systems do you have in place that could possibly alert you that there's hostile people in your area? Do you have good communications with your neighbors? Or are you going to rely on social media? Do you have alarms, sensors, or cameras around your property that could alert you that people are trying to get onto the property or break into your house? The issue with a lot of alarms, sensors, and cameras is they run off electricity, which during times of civil unrest might not be fully operational. Generally in rural areas, it's a lot easier to get hold of firearms. But again, if you use force, make sure you can justify the force that you used. With random acts of terrorism, you have the same option of fighting or fleeing. If you're going to fight, do you have the capability to fight? In a lot of US states, you can have concealed weapons permits. You can carry firearms legally. Not so in most of Europe. So fighting is not really an option. If you're going to flee, make sure you're fleeing to a safe area and always be wary of secondary attacks. I tell people, if you're involved or close to a random terrorist incident, you're better off fleeing. Don't get involved in other people's problems. Your safety comes first, and the safety of your family comes first. What a lot of people don't realize is these terrorists and activists are trained. Antifa had its own unit in Syria working with the YPG, where they were getting training and also combat experience. In Syria, the SDA, which is the US-backed militia in northern Syria, has recently released over 600 supposedly low-level ISIS members from one of their prison camps. God knows where these terrorists are now. No one knows who's in Europe these days, due to open borders, due to illegal immigrants pouring in from Africa, the Middle East, Afghanistan, etc. Could these people be innocent? Sure. Could they be trained terrorists? Sure. Who knows? You have illegal immigrants from all over the world joining the caravans coming up through Latin America into the United States. Again, who are these people? No one knows. Are they innocent refugees or are they trained terrorists? Nobody knows. These days we're living in very difficult times with a high potential for hostile incidents. In Western Europe, the leaders are extremely weak and confused. In the US, the politicians are more interested in infighting than actually dealing with the serious issues they should be dealing with. And then we have COVID being played to the max by the media to further frighten people and destabilize the global situation. So in conclusion, if you're a responsible person, you should have thought about what to do in the worst case scenarios, as we're living in very unstable times. At this point, all we can do is be prepared, sit back, watch how things develop, and hope the world comes to its senses sometime in the very near future. Thanks for listening.